Seth Miller from PaxEx.Aero. And as we were planning this conversation, I realized that we've all been doing this not too long, but for quite a long time. And so the prep was kind of actually a catch-up session rather than actual planning. So we're going to see how that plays out. But the good news is everyone here actually knows what they're talking about. A lot of experience in the in-flight entertainment and connectivity space, a lot of experience in technology, a lot of experience with airlines, a lot of experience with building airplanes and the systems that go into it. So real quick first introductions just to level set, and then we're going to bring some fun to the party. I'm going to start with John.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is John Norris. I'm Director of Marketing Operations at Thales.
Hi, I'm Germain Yon from Airbus Customer Services, and I'm heading the marketing department for connected aircraft and digital.
Hi, everybody. I'm Duncan Jackson, the president of FlightPath 3D. We're the map guys.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Ben Asmar. I'm the Vice President for Products and Strategy at RAVE Aerospace. We're the IFE guys.
Stephen Greenway, I'm the airline guy, formerly CEO of Flyer Deal and now an advisor to the chairman of the Saudia group.
Awesome. And so this conversation is going to be about digitalization and personalization. And I heard a very interesting statistic from one of the other IFE guys who's not here on this panel yesterday, and they said only 8% of aircraft flying today implement the personalization systems that can be made available to them. And like I said, we've all been around a while. We've been talking about personalization arguably since I started in this industry more than a decade ago. And we're still at only 8% success, and even success might not be the right answer there. But what is the opportunity with personalization? What is personalization from your perspective? And we'll get into how we can actually do it. But what is it and why is it valuable? You guys are going to talk to each other, not to me.
All right, I'll start. So I think personalization from an airline perspective, if I can say that, is really down to what the airline wants to offer their passenger and what the passenger expects in return. And I think one of the reasons it's been a bit stagnant kind of starting is because we haven't really had like the low latency connectivity you need. If you have the connectivity, then you can kind of dip into the airline CRM system, and then your embedded IFE on board becomes that kind of extension of CRM. And then if you have that knowledge of the customer, you can start offering up things much more dynamically. So the kind of nirvana is, that the IFE configures itself for every individual passenger, and it can kind of morph and change in flight, and you have real-time, change rather than, monthly content cycles, where if you fly regularly within 2 trips, you've seen everything on board and you can't get surprised, where, that dynamic ability isn't there. So for us, I think at Thales, that's what we think of in personalization. It's not necessarily the kind of like revenue side of things. A lot of people, I think it's like, dynamic advertising and A/B testing of ads and that type of thing. But I think it's the kind of surprise and delight of getting left field content and suggestions. A lot of the curated content that's available, sort of works very much better with a dynamic kind of system, and the connectivity has really enabled that.
Yeah, I can eventually take over. Well, usually for an aircraft manufacturer, it's always about performance, it's about seats, and now it's really important to consider the travel. And our perspective is really to make the flight fully part of the travel, opening the barriers of the full travel ecosystem and going beyond the traditional flight experience with nice and fancy IFE systems, and it's really opening the capabilities for destination management company, travel operators, events to come on board of the aircraft and basically deliver something where, okay, let's imagine you want to go to the Olympic Games in Los Angeles, flying from London to New York and then to New York, from New York to Los Angeles. You want to have the possibility to basically customize what's happening in the aircraft by proposing the Olympic Games organization to be on board of the aircraft, to be on the AFE, and to deliver a first taste of what will be the Olympic experience. It could be for the Olympics, it could be for a safari in the Kruger Park, flying to Johannesburg, and then having some specific insights. And for us at Airbus, it's really about opening the aircraft and making it easy for all the travel ecosystems or beyond the airlines community to come on board and deliver what would make part of the travel for the passengers.
Interestingly, I don't think the two of you really agreed there in some ways. There's some overlap, but John, you started with, it's not about the revenue, and so my next question is how are you going to pay for it, because this stuff does cost money. And then we also talked about, immersion in a experience sponsored by the Olympics or something like that, which we've seen sort of ish with the Super Bowl and advertising programs and So both of those exist, but A, if you're not charging money for it, or you're not making money on it, how do we pay for it? And B, which of those provides value to the passenger also, not just to the airline?
So maybe I misspoke and didn't clarify what I meant. It's not necessarily about the revenue. I think personalization can mean a different thing to each and every airline. If you know one airline, you know one airline. That doesn't mean everyone does the same thing. So I think there's a revenue opportunity, but there's a kind of passenger experience delight opportunity. There's a through journey. There's destination experiences. Everyone has their different approach to what would make the flight better and special to them.
There is no definition of personalization. It's like, it's not clear. It's a bit like teenagers making out. Everyone's talking about it. They don't really know how to do it, but everyone's pretending they're getting it right,
We just redefined personalization.
No, it's just
Thank you all for coming. That's a wrap.
So if you think about personalization in its most foundational form, I'm a male, 50 years old, I live in this city, I might be a loyalty member on a credit card, I have certain food types that I like, and then you're great. Then you start using that for targeting and advertising. Great, that's kind of the first step of the value chain. I care more about which version of me's traveling, because when I traveled from SFO to London before I came here, I came with my wife. She's got masses of anxiety, and I was in husband mode, and we wanted some leisure food, and she's such an anxious flyer. The information that was presented, thank God the map was ours, and it was doing a really good job of presenting it. But the taxi mode, so we knew who was in front of the aircraft and where we were on the runway, all of that's managing her anxiety. And when we had some free time, we were thinking about what would we do when we land, because we hadn't had time to look it up. When I flew here, I'm in business mode. I just want co-working space in the sky, fast internet, and leave me alone. And food is just fuel, because I'm just working. And as you think about what it means when you travel as a dad, because I've got kids and I've got a travel trip coming up, I'm in the mode and a state of, let's just keep my kids entertained and fed, and that just makes me happy because it's an easy life. So I think focusing on which version of you's traveling, and then translating that into the work we've done on accessibility, where that accessibility stack is the full experience. If you've got motor skills, understanding that that's really relevant, or cognitive skills, knowing if you're traveling with kids, these are the elements that dictate who the person is, outside of the pure advertising and targeting, just pulling in the manifest data. And if you're really smart about it, you'll pull in the manifest, know you've got a connecting flight, and start upselling programs on the next leg of the journey to say, why don't you book a better seat and upgrade with a last-minute offer. So there's things you can start to do that are targeting, but it's a moving target defining what personalization is. And I will say that Google really struggles doing it in travel. They have not defined specific profiles in that space. And I could talk about this a long time, but I'll calm down.
Steve, as the airline, does any of this actually line up with what you're hearing from your passengers, and can anyone actually deliver it?
I think a couple of things. I think one, it's a bit of amorphous in terms of what is personalization. I think at its most basic level, we obviously recognize the customer and we take actions because we have a profile of the customer at its most basic. And we could talk about that for hours, but I won't. Number one. Number two is the promise has never been fulfilled in my mind. I put your hand up, anyone who has read an annual report of an airline that said, because of personalization, we've made an extra 50 million this year. Anyone? Nothing? Nope. So again, the promise is not fulfilled. The third, which irritates me more than anything else, is the experience is inconsistent. You know, you have to have a plane built in 2025 with Starlink, specifically trained crew, and it has to be a clear weather day, and maybe some personalization will come off. And I just think the whole thing is inconsistent in that space. A lot of airlines talk about what they're doing, but I'm sure there's many of you who are frequent flyers who are consistently let down because you're not even recognized as a top-tier frequent flyer. And that may be just a welcome beverage when you walk on the plane, something as simple as that. And the crew are overwhelmed because they're boarding the plane. And so it's not the system, it's physical processes. So I think where I stand as an airline, we've been talking about this for 15, 20 years. The principle, I think everyone agrees with. But in our application is very, very poor, incredibly poor. And I think that's where, particularly airlines and so forth are frustrated. We have tried to inject personalization via IFE, via crew procedures, tablets and so forth, via a range of technologies and what have you. And it's just not working, or it's inconsistent. And therefore, if it's inconsistent, it's not working, because you can have one great flight, you hop on a regional jet of the same airline, and you get completely inconsistent service and so forth. So I think from an airline perspective, but certainly the airlines that I've been running, so it is, the promise is there, but the reality is just not being fulfilled.
Is it a technology problem? Is it a person problem? Is it just a big problem?
Yes. I think
all of the above.
I mean, I think Stephen is spot on, is with the rate of change of technology and then the natural pace and how long it takes to populate that technology on a fleet. If you have a rather large mixed age fleet, mixed aircraft type fleet, the inconsistency is almost impossible to overcome. Even at your fastest, you take a new aircraft. So with my previous life, I was at Airbus. We used to define long-range aircraft about 2 years out. So you had the cabin definition freeze 2 years before your first delivery. So you were already 3 generations old when you delivered the first aircraft of smartphone kind of technology, that type of thing. And if your deliveries are over 5 years, when you take your last aircraft, the technology is 7 years old. And that's a good start. So then if you kind of add that onto a bigger fleet, it's very, very hard to get consistency. And I don't know how you surmount that. I mean, I think one of the challenges and a kind of direction we've gone in is to move to a cloud-native system where you can use more naturally, more easily available, like HTML code and stuff that you can do on the ground, so that you're less dependent on the system on board, and that you can kind of churn, the software and the digital, processes that you're kind of putting into place. But it is going to be an ongoing big challenge, particularly for a large airline.
But can I just add one thing? I mean, again, you're talking about a singular airline and the difficulties. But how many of you have got a conjoined ticket? So say Lufthansa on to as a Star Alliance member, and then you're hopping on United to get to the United States, as an example. Again, the premise of an alliance is a consistency of service, consistency of delivery. You're talking about limitations just within an airline, let alone
absolutely an alliance.
And 9 times out of 10 guaranteed, 99% of the time, the airline that is in partnership with your airline knows nothing about you at all. Wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And therefore inconsistency of service immediately. So
yeah, good point.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes personalization work is data, right? Personalization systems don't know you just because you're sitting in the seat. You've got to get this data that are buried in some airline system somewhere, you've got to package it, you've got to get it to the aircraft, then you've got to put it on board the aircraft and have it understood. But I think even all that, that's not even think about those problems. Sometimes the data isn't even there. So if you haven't got the data to start with, or it's not clean, you can't you can't transport it into something usable, then this whole thing is never going to work. And then you start looking at how you exchange data between partner airlines to say, then I've got to take this information, I've got to give it to you, then you've got to do something useful with it and then put it back in your system. So the whole end-to-end data exchange needs to get solved before you can even think about the higher tier problems of delivering personalization.
And I think from a data standpoint, the industry has a characteristic that is predominantly infrequent utility of the service. If you think about other industries where you're using it a lot, you can build that data and get more insights into the actual users. And I don't think it's just the airline industry, I think it's all travel. If you think about like music, it was offline, then it went online, and we all used iTunes, and then it got to Spotify, which is recommendations, weekly lists, and then the same happened with photos offline, and then it went online, and we all used those old photo services. Now it's Pinterest and recommendations and interest-based. I haven't seen a really good, like travel was offline, it went online, like OTAs and stuff, but even OTAs and all those industries, there's no like great personalization in travel that never happened. I don't think it's got to that next part, and I think part of it is the characteristics of the industry itself, and then you layer on the pieces you talked about, Steve, in terms of multi-network, dual flights. It's a very complex thing to solve, so I don't think it's just an airline challenge. I think it's an industry challenge, and hopefully AI and some of the new technologies might allow to get more data and usage, but...
Well, and then you look at, just because you can, should you?
Right.
I think you've got to also pick what is the right level of personalization, coming back to Seth's point, which is, do passengers care? Some of them probably do. But I mean, you could go to great lengths to provide this very deep personalized experience, and they just care about this bit of it. So we also have to figure out, well, what really is value adding to the passenger, what's going to make their experience better.
Well, that's a personalization challenge of the personalization of the person, right?
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to react on the technology side and consistency for sure. Technologies and specifically the strong data management is helping for improving the consistency of the quality of service. In the meantime, I strongly believe that it's also important to manage inconsistency. You said that each and every passenger is different. Each and every passenger traveling for business or leisure has different expectations, but if you extrapolate on that, each and every route is different. You are asking in terms of technology and passenger benefit. If you can properly, thanks to AI, properly monitor what you serve in terms of catering, food, etc., in terms of video content, you can, on the same aircraft flying to Johannesburg or flying to New York, you need to easily adapt what is on board, what is on board in terms of food, in terms of video, in terms of type of service, because that's what the customer is expecting. And the ability of the aircraft and beyond the aircraft, the fleet and the airline ecosystem has to properly aggregate and manage this data. Having specific partners to come on board will definitely help to manage, on the one hand, the quality of service in a consistent manner, and on the other hand, the inconsistency that you need to properly handle.
Ben, I want to go back to something you just said a few minutes ago. The data isn't there. And there's a lot of ways I could interpret that. We're not collecting the data. We're not processing the data. We're not understanding the data. We're not able to redistribute the data.
Sharing the data.
We're not sharing the data. Thank you. I mean, there's a lot of ways the data isn't there. And I'm afraid I'm going to ask a question and John's just going to say yes again. But which of these, is one of them really the problem? Is it all of them? Or do we have a dream, a hope, a glimmer of chance that we might actually solve this? Or are we flailing about and we're going to do this all again 2 years from now, maybe with vodka instead of water?
I think it's all of them, for sure. And even if you have it, can you use it? And can you actually get it where it needs to go to be useful in the time you need it to get there? And then is it right? There's nothing more, talking about consistencies. You sit down in your seat, and my name's Ben, and I'm sitting in a seat for David. It's like, well, hang on a minute, that's not right. That then kind of erodes the trust in the person who's sitting there about what's actually being presented. Can it be achieved? Absolutely. I mean, the technology is there to do everything we're talking about. Can it be done at the scale in which this business operates, this industry operates, with many different players who would have to exchange this data and then do something with it and store it and then forward it? Then you add privacy concerns on top of that, which you've got to consider as well. It's very complex to deliver, I think, if you look at the entire journey or the entire chain. Let's just start doing it in this part well and get that right, then maybe we can expand it to the next bit and the next bit. I think where we fall into is everyone tries to say, I've got to have this enormous personalized environment, and they try to eat the elephant all at once. Let's just start with this bit and get that bit right first. We know we can do that. Let's move on to the next thing, which is going to add value.
Which part first? Right? Where's the value? Both to the airline, to you as vendors, to me as the passenger?
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to if you're on a plane experiencing entertainment, the first place to start in my mind is let's understand what you've consumed. So next time you're on board, we can tailor the experience better to you. Or you can finish watching what you didn't finish watching last time. I mean, this is common now in everyone's living room. Surely we can get that right on board aircraft to make sure that the experience is tailored to the person who's sitting in that seat. To me, that makes a very good first step because it actually then feels like other entertainment systems that people are using in their daily lives.
Entertainment guy wants entertainment to be first. I'm shocked.
Go figure, right?
Is gambling in this establishment? You also, though, touched on, you didn't finish the movie and you want to catch the end of it and things, what's next. Airlines have had you log into your IFE system and we will save your favorites of your movies, things like that, but we also deal with the frequency problem. You use your iTunes or now your Spotify or whatever service, music every day on your commute. Even the most frequent of flyers aren't flying every day, and 80%, 50%, pick that number, are flying less than once a year. And so maybe we exclude those passengers. They can't personalize to you if I've never seen you before.
But I do believe there are real opportunities because if you think about it, small things matter. And you often go back to the same restaurant or some service because of a very small item. So Stephen mentioned about your favorite drink when you get on the plane. There are things about dietary restrictions, whether you're an anxious flyer or you have accessibility needs. If there's just some traits that can be commonly recognized and shared at that data level, small things matter. They really do, and it can actually start to assist and shift your sort of perspective on things. I don't think it needs to be a panacea of everything from a data standpoint.
So you would not do the IFE first, you'd do my preferred drink?
I'm just saying that if you look at it, I mean, Stephen's got the best view here because he's actually been across the whole airline experience, which is you get the view, the whole panacea of what it takes to offer the right service to individuals. I'm a nut for luxury sushi. If you present anything around that, I'm super happy. There's just some elements that really matter to me.
Yeah. Steve, when you were, you also dealt mostly in the low-cost carrier space, so personalization and luxury and specialization maybe not the focus, but you did have very frequent customers. You did certainly have the ability to find some spots where you could get those touch points. Is this only a premium thing? Is there a way to do it well at the low end also?
So a couple of things. With data, I actually think opposite. I think there's plenty of data out there. We just don't act on it. There's your booking, there's your loyalty profile if you have one. There's a huge amount of data out there. But I just don't think airlines act on it very well. Technology, process, call it what you will. My view is the vast bulk or the mass of flyers out there barely fly with you once a year. And it's not that I don't care about them. What I would say is I think personalization at that level with those type of travelers is fool's gold. I think that you should have, what type of airline are you? And what does that mean in terms of delivery? Deliver the basics, be on time, you're going to get a decent in-flight meal. If you're Singapore Airlines, you'll get a wet towel before takeoff. These type of things that markers that I'm going to fly XY airline and I'm going to have this experience and just deliver it consistently. That is something to look forward to because I don't think, with this where I think we go wrong is we need personalization on mass market, which I just don't think works, and we don't deliver, and we're not delivering today. However, the flip side of that is, your 10% of your flyers or less is generating 80-90% of your revenue. It's the frequent flyers. That's where personalization is. But I always give the example to people when we talk about this. Who's been on a flight and the lead flight attendant will come up. They've got their iPad. They're very proud of it, and they'll come up and say, I see you flew with us last week. Who cares? What type of personalization is that? What is it going to deliver to you as a customer? I mean, fine, it's a nice conversation piece, but it delivers absolutely no value to you whatsoever. If they have actually pivoted that and said, I see you like seafood because you've consistently ordered seafood with us, I do have a nice seafood dish that I can set aside for you. Is that something what you would like me to do? That adds a bit of value. But we're not even there yet. So I think personalization for me is with your most frequent flyers. It is a misnomer as a LCC that we don't have high value frequent flyers. We do. I always laugh when my aircraft, Flyer Deal aircraft park and we're on a remote stand and the first couple of people in the first rows get out and they have the Rolls-Royce Bentley sitting on the tarmac waiting for them to be picked up, and I go up to them and tap them on the shoulder and go, why are you flying us? You're cheap and you're on time. And why would I pay a fortune for an hour flight? Okay, I'll take your money, thank you. But the point is we have a lot of frequent flyers on us that fly more than 100 sectors a year. Okay, so they're very high value. And we do actually have a loyalty program that encompasses them. And we have some small data points, only a few that the crew actually act on, including a pre-departure beverage and so forth, which we don't offer anyone else. Just simple recognition. The seat in the middle is blocked because of them, as an example. So if the flight is full, that seat will be taken, but 9 times out of 10, they'll get a free seat because they're typically sitting up front, and we'll soft block the seat as an example. So there's a few things like that work really well and really do generate loyalty in my mind. But again, coming back to the central premise, and once you start getting complex, the food example that I gave and all this type of stuff, it doesn't happen consistently. I haven't seen it widely done. And again, you're sitting there as a frequent flyer in a business class section or whatever, and you're just everyone else. It's like, there's no differentiation whatsoever, and I think that is wrong. But mass travel, I think you just deliver a consistent product. You don't need personalization. What does your brand stand for? Deliver it, and deliver it consistently. That will go far more than doing individual personalization moments.
So it's okay that we only have 8% of planes doing it because it wasn't worthwhile anyways.
Exactly.
It's going to make it a lot harder for these guys to sell it.
Yeah.
Perhaps just a word on the way we see the problem, because we are focusing a lot on taking the perspective of one single airline. As a passenger, I believe many people, not all of them for sure, but many people are much more loyal with their booking engine or travel agency and are quite opportunistic because of the pricing. And they expect eventually that the experience they have when they book with one airline or another, there is some kind of continuity, and that even if one day they fly with airline A and the month after with airline B, I'm recognized. They know a bit about myself, about the experience I expect, about the reasons for why I travel, and that's why I believe today with technology, and of course, there was an interesting panel about connectivity before, but beyond connectivity, having the ability today to organize the interoperability between different digital ecosystems. On the one hand, airline digital ecosystem, and on the other hand, travel agencies, Amadeus, Sabre, or other distribution company or systems. You can really organize the fact that there is, thanks to data, a continuity for the passenger, whatever the airline and the aircraft you are flying on.
I mean, that's a massive technology undertaking. And, instead of just eating the elephant all at once, it sounds like we're trying to eat a whole herd. The airline can barely talk to itself, expecting them to talk across multiple panels. Are we reaching too far?
Is it a massive technology change, or is it a massive transformation of the way we organize and we manage a track? Today, in terms of technology, we have connectivity, we have servers, we have cloud, we have a digital ecosystem all over the world, which is super strong. It's all about orchestrating that. And I mean, it's something the industry has to organize collectively. In terms of technology, I believe we have it all today. So it's more in terms of transformation of the industry than just in pure technology development.
I think maybe we're doing it wrong, though. I mean, we're trying to get all these different systems that are out there to talk to each other and then get this information into some place that can be used. But I mean, the personalization, Uber personalization is here. This thing knows everything about you. Just people are glued to them all day, every day. So maybe we should be using the stuff that's on here to provide the personalized experience in the situation you're in, so that we're not having to connect all these different systems. We can use what we've already got and then make the personalized experience exactly how you want to do it based on what you know. So maybe it's also, we have to think about putting something on the phone or using the apps that are already on the phone or having some kind of aggregation point so that we're not having to do all these complex things that we all agree are probably impossible, particularly in this industry where the speed at which it moves. So maybe we need to think about the problem differently.
Yeah, historically, there wasn't, we go back far enough, there wasn't a connection on the airplane. You were offline. It was very easy for the airline to own that experience. Whether they did it well or not, it was all on them. As we've gotten to the more connected experience and now more recently very connected experience, let's say we're on probably Gen 4 or 5 of in-flight connectivity now, and it's almost vaguely starting to work well. That changes the control. And so we've talked about, can airlines share this data and have information across it? Are we just using our own personal experience? Bring your own digital rights was a thing a while ago when we started streaming on planes, and there's a lot of copyright and licensing things that we're not going to get into, but that's a risk and challenge. But each of those steps, the airline seems to shed a tiny bit of control and a tiny bit of ownership of that experience. And usually that's associated with shedding a tiny bit of revenue also. And so how do you, A, am I completely off base here and it's no big deal? And then B, how do you convince the airline that it's okay to give up some of that control because their passengers are going to be happier?
That's a big question. Sorry, I was going to say that this whole adage of it used to be knowledge is power, and then it become kind of data is power. And I think Ben or Stephen touched on it is, it's not about a shortage of data. It's about what you're doing with that data. And I think sharing it is a big problem, and actually turning the data into intelligence and actually, something that you can make a decision on. I think that's where we're kind of missing a bit of ground. And one would hope that AI and agentic and stuff like that would help sift through colossal amounts of data so you can get some decisions from it. Because that's really what you want to make, is can you make a business decision based on the data? And then data from multiple sources. So, 10 years ago, data lakes was the big thing. It's get as much data as you possibly can. Have a data lake. But it's that's fine. But it's just a lot of ones and zeros. What do you do with it? You need to be able to interrogate it and take some business decisions that make sense. And I think linked to that, I think it's very easy to think that the personalization should be something digital. And I think Stephen touched on this. The thing that you'll remember as a passenger is the physical touches rather than something digital. It's not having the right movie. I remember many, many years ago, it's probably 15 years ago, Patrick Branley from Emirates telling the story, which was, pre-internet age. What mattered and the kind of touch was, I think they had one customer on one leg, in business class, didn't get the newspaper he wanted. So over the cockpit communication, they basically relayed a message ahead and said, make sure seat 2A, when they arrive, it gets handed his paper, please. So, and I think in some respects, I think those physical aspects of personalization are almost more important than the digital. The digital stuff should be doable. It's a case of data access and sharing and that type of thing.
Yeah, just touching on what I think you were saying, Seth, about the in-flight piece was, I actually think that the disruption that's going on in the internet right now with AI, Wikipedia's site's down 14% year over year, search is down, AI is now answering questions by scraping sites. TripAdvisor's down 14%. I mean, these numbers are just massive how the shift's coming. So search is dramatically changing. I tell my kids we live in an era that they're college, I'm you're going to have to explain to your kids, you used to have to read lists of stuff and click on it and open it like a library. You've got to explain that to your kids, they're going to think you're nuts, right? That was the web experience. With this disruption going on right now, the big value on the internet, the currency, it's time. You know, airlines get 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes on the website max. I think there's still a huge opportunity in flight because you're wrapped in the branded experience of the aircraft, the crew, the whole product experience is there. So I still think this is an amazing opportunity for the product experience and the time you have in front of them to collect a better set of information about your customers' and clients' needs, especially in the context of when I'm on the plane, my brain's in the destination already, and the reason, you know, I'm going to take my next flight somewhere is based on what the experience is in the destination. So I still think there's a huge opportunity, and everyone's fighting for eyeballs on the net, and that stuff's getting like massively disrupted. I still think the airlines have got this amazing opportunity to collect this data if we build the right experiences, and we can use some new technologies to capture more meaningful insights around passengers by serving up We've got access to the whole internet now with connectivity. If that can be wrapped in the experience of the loyalty in the flight so that you find out that I'm a sushi nut and I'm a sporting guy, and that's all there at the fingertips to offer as a service using AI and chat agents and search tools. If you do it in the context right, I'll use that. Bolting on a chatbot that doesn't know where I am, how long till I land, and it's not telling me the Uber pickup is car park 2, second level this, and it's 45 minutes to get downtown right now, and there's a sushi restaurant there where you're going or whatever. That's gold. So I think we can unlock an amazing set of information really rapidly if we lean into the right things based on the context of travel and technology in a far better fashion than I'm in a coffee shop where I literally see an airline as a transactional site to book something.
So you're going to take advantage of the fact that we have all this technology that's enabling the personalization, and rather than losing the customer to that internet link, we can capture them, we can retain them and still get that value?
I think there's going to be leakage, but I'm on a plane for hours, 5 minutes of me interacting with some service that you provide, and I've seen some of the things you guys are working on. You're going to gather more information there, because I don't think it's hugely interesting to know that, you know, I watched the latest Barbie movie because I've got a little bit of a rom-com thing in me. I don't think that's really that interesting, but the more information you can gather about who I am, and those insights and characteristics will be way more insightful.
Steve, you all did some personalization without connectivity on board. These little touches that you're talking about, you didn't have. You did it based on feeds from the ground, but
No.
Is the connectivity key?
Look, there's specific operating procedures. We just have them baked in. It's easier to deliver. I think two things. Number one, what is recognition? And it's different from him to you to me. Recognition might be that I want to be left alone. I just want to go to sleep because it's a red eye. Just don't come and bother me. From the moment I walk on that plane, I don't want to know anyone. Or it could be I'm going to have a full 3-course meal, etc., 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 and this is what I want. So I think, you know, and everything else in between. So recognition is this morphous we need to get our heads around. And I don't think, you know, feeding data into that does not necessarily help. I'll give you one example which frustrates me, and I don't understand why any airline is not doing this at the moment. Because the technology's there. We know what meals, as an example, we're loading on an aircraft. So let's go to a full-service carrier, yeah? We know what meals we're loading onto a full-service carrier. My app is reasonably okay as an airline. Why aren't we having a dialogue with the consumer before they actually fly with us to say, Seth, what do you want? We have chicken and beef. Sorry, I'll be simplistic. The meal on the flight's chicken or beef. Let me know what your drink is after takeoff, etc., etc. Or would you like do not disturb? I'll just leave you alone because you want to go to sleep. Can anyone name an airline that's doing that at this moment in time? And book the cook is not the one I'm talking about. A couple of airlines do offer that, but they don't offer the end-to-end. All you're doing is you're ordering your main meal typically. But how many airlines consistently say, look, this is the meals they load are the meals they load for typically 2 to 3 months. They know what's on board the aircraft. So why aren't they having a dialogue with you 24 hours prior to departure, or even at the boarding gate to say, what would you like? Because you're a premium flyer, I'll put it aside for you so we don't run out. And what drink do you want after takeoff? Or do you want not to be disturbed and just to sleep? Do you want us to make down your bed if you're in business class, or whatever the case may be? Do you know any airline that's doing that at the moment? No. And wouldn't you think that's fairly basic? Yep. So why aren't they doing it?
Data.
I don't necessarily think so.
So I will say,
So-
in the U.S., we definitely have a few airlines that have the full menu available for pre-selection.
Yep.
It's not book the cook, but you do have a few choices. You don't get the drink. But I actually do think it's data. It's how do you get that information to the flight attendant? How do you make sure it's actually accurate? Do I know what I want to eat 3 days
how
from
do
now?
they execute, particularly if there's 40
and then
seats
how do
they've
they
got to deal with or whatever.
right? And then how do you execute on it? So I understand wanting to be able to say I don't need to have the full conversation again when I get on board. I want to save that time. I want to have that, to be able to sleep faster or
Or it
whatever.
even goes through the IFE screen and says, oh, Mr. Greenway, welcome, your seat 6E. Here's what we've got in terms of, can I confirm with you, yes or no? It's
JetBlue
just
actually
right,
does.
right in front of you.
And JetBlue does screen-based ordering for their meals, which I will say on the transatlantic, which I thought was going to be a disaster, and they execute it spectacularly well.
There we go.
So, but that's an economy, so it's a whole different problem. Hey, y'all out there, anyone have questions that you want to throw up at the crew?
Oh, one over there.
We got one.
Hi, I'm Ross Crandall. I actually work for a very luxury, high-end travel company. We have a few jets and do private around the world travel. So we have we heavily personalize everything. Like we know everything about every guest that travels with us all the time. I think part of the problem or the difficulty has been connectivity. I think that's kind of like the key number one thing. But the other side of it is gathering that information as far as, like we always call them, golden nuggets. But I think you can look into how hotels handle this type of situation to understand how to provide luxury services to guests on the jets.
Yep.
So.
I mean, it's a interesting point about the hotels, because we're talking about personalization in the context of air travel. Really should be talking about personalization. This is the bigger elephant of the entire travel journey, because you've got a person who's at home, they're going to get into an Uber, maybe a taxi, they go to the airport, they're having an experience at the airport, they get on the plane, they do something there, then they get off and they go to a hotel. There's no reason that whole journey can't be at least unified to what that person does and how they interact and how they prefer to travel and what their preferences are. I think as a travel industry, we should be looking at this problem, not just an airline industry, because I think it does offer value. It can drive loyalty if it's executed well, but it can't just be in our segment. It's got to be broader than that to make sense.
And I think that goes back to the point they were making before. Can you share it even across airlines? Now we've gone from we can't do it at one airline, but we're going to share it across airlines and then across the broader industry.
Yeah.
Piece of cake.
I don't even think we need hotels. I get your point, but how many times, I don't know, you've been in business or first, if you're lucky enough, you've taken a flight from the airline's hub, let's say. I remember I was very lucky. I flew in first many years ago on Swiss Air, went to their hub via Zurich. It was gorgeous, the lounge, the treatment and everything. Flew to Bangkok, hit the airport. No one knew me. I was just everyone else. And my bags came off late. So not even getting to the hotel or what have you. It's you hit the airport and it's not your airport. It's an outsourced operation. They're not your people on the ground. And all of a sudden the whole experience unravels. And your bag is lost, even better. And you're like, well, who do I speak to? I'll go speak to the agent over there. They don't work for the airline, but they represent the airline. And so again, we don't have this sort through process. It's great if you're on your own turf, on your own aircraft, with your own people. There's a certain degree of control, just like a hotel. Walk outside of the hotel onto the street, bang. And we've got a problem now. And so we don't even get to the hotel. I think airlines are miserable in terms of even just at the airport experience, particularly if it's out of their network. It's not their core airport. It's a downwind airport.
We are rapidly approaching end of our session, and so as a parting shot, want to run down the line, putting on your passenger hat, not your business hat. What would you tell you, as the business person running these businesses? What's the one personalization feature that you think is doable that you would like to see implemented on, and let's just say you're just the one airline just for that experience. We're not going to stretch the whole ribbon out, but what's the one experience that you would think brings value?
Oh dear, under pressure. I think for me, I'm just thinking about my round-the-world trip to get here, because I came via Asia, as you do, to get to Europe from the west coast of the US. And it was, and I think Stephen kind of mentioned this, I think it's the flexibility and being able to be a bit more instantaneous with some of these decisions. So I might get on an aircraft and think, great, I'm flying business, I want the full meal, I want everything. But actually, you get there and it's like, I'm exhausted, I just want to sleep. And it's that, how do I convey that? I seem to remember some time ago, there was one airline, I can't remember which one it was, you had a little sticker with 4 colors on it, and you could basically say what your preference, like, if I'm asleep, don't wake me up, or just let me sleep for the whole flight. I can't remember which airline it was, but it was mechanical. You know, you basically ticked the box. And it's almost like, could we just have something like that? So it's asking me right at the point of the service start of what I want. Because I think a lot of people, as a traveler, or me as a traveler, just because you think you're going to be a certain way halfway through a journey doesn't mean you're actually going to be like that. You're going to change.
I would basically refer to my previous travel operator experience and come back to the basic. Exceed my expectations, surprise me. And I really believe that with data and AI, airline can really unlock creativity. And it's really about it, and that's what I expect. Surprise me.
I think mine is understand some of my basic interests and understand the context, which version of me is flying. And those two things are very powerful as to do the so what, and I don't think it's this huge complex matrix. It's just a very simple set of traits that we can attribute and then enable a certain experience around that. And I think accessibility, whether you're a father, whatever those elements are, I think it's a very powerful cocktail if you get it right, and that excites me a lot.
I think if you've got at least a small amount of information, just tailor the experience a little bit to me so I don't have to start over every time. You get on a plane and it's like, okay, get things set up, going to do this, going to favorite these movies again and set this up because I didn't do that last time, and I'm going to spend 10 minutes doing that. If I can get on, I don't have to spend those 10 minutes doing that, and I feel like, oh, that's actually what's on the front page is what I do want to watch, or how I do want to experience the engagement. And I'd say the other thing is with personalization, you use the tools that are already there. And there's a great screen sitting in front of you on most long-haul airlines, even short-haul airlines these days. It's not just for movies, it can be about engagement. Use it to get a message or an experience to the person who's sitting in front of it. You've got them sitting there for quite a while. So use the tools you've already got.
My utopia would be flexibility. Take your definition of what that is, but if you're a top-tier frequent flyer, and I mean top, God status type of thing, you ask me as a customer, I think the most meaningful thing is get rid of all your stupid SOPs. You know, stop sitting there going, but our policy is this. Yeah, that can apply to everyone else. I fly with you 150 times a year, okay? I'm not asking for much. I'm asking for you just to move me from flight A to flight B because I'm at the airport now and I want to go home early. Don't give me garbage. Okay, so I suppose flexibility, you know, what is the goalposts? But I think if you truly are valued, you truly are a top tier frequent flyer as you are. I think that flexibility just built in. Stop giving me terms and conditions. I don't care. You make a fortune out of me. So you know, come halfway, compromise. Give me flexibility. Flexibility could manifest in many different ways, I accept, and there's room for abuse, absolutely. But I think that you have to triage your most top frequent flyers and give them that flexibility and say, look, this is what the policy is. I'm going to waive this because I have the power to do so because you're one of our top tier guys or girls. And I think, you know, if an airline actually got to that utopia, my God, that would be wonderful.
Excellent. And I'm going to say that mine is actually the exact opposite of yours. Is I don't ever want to be surprised. And it's, listen, I am a little OCD perhaps, but I want that experience. I know what it's supposed to sound like when you're taking off and landing. I know how the plane is supposed to feel and move. I know if we're doing a go around before you feel the plane move because I hear the engine spooling up. True story. I actually said go around to my wife one day. She's like, what? I'm like, wait 5 seconds, and then we started to take off again. Right. So. I want that experience to be so incredibly consistent. It actually doesn't have to be perfect, but a consistent 7 is better than ranging between a 10 and a 3 for me. So I think what we've just proven here is it's impossible to do because we all have completely different expectations, but that is personalization. And on that note, big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you all very much for being here.